Hi, this is Ruben from the Ruby Tuesday. Today we are reviewing Gerald's Game, another Netflix original adaptation from a Stephen King book that was released in 1992, and now we have an original film. So stay tuned.
Let's go in, get comfy.
So, this book is probably one that you've not heard of, unless you're a really great fan. The book was released in 1992, like I said, and it's taken Mike Flanagan half his life to get this film made. It's a labor of love for him. In fact, if you speak to him, you'll know that he has got a copy of the book in his bag, and he has had it in his bag for I would say half of his life. And it's not until now has he been able to acquire the rights and get the film made, because of his backlog of films and work he's done now, that Stephen King allowed the rights to go and let the film be made. Firstly, let me apologize for my man cold. I'm busy trying to survive it.
It's really good.
So if you are a massive fan of the book, I would say most of the time you'd be worried about an adaptation from the book, because like the Dark Tower, it's really hard for them to put everything in to the story. But I would say you're going to be pleasantly surprised because of how much of a real fanboy Mike Flanagan is of this particular work.
You all right, man?
Okay, so there are two phenomenal actors that they managed to get in for the leading roles. You got Bruce Greenwood, which you'll know from Mad Men, and Carla Gugino, which you'll know from, well, currently she was on a TV series on Amazon called Roadies, and that was helmed by James Cameron and produced by J.J. Abrams. So you know that strong work of those guys are on board. And so what this film is about is a struggling marriage, and they go to their cabin that they own in the middle of nowhere, and they try and spice their love life up. And what ends up happening is the wife gets handcuffed to a bed, and through something that happens, she has to try and escape, survive being handcuffed to a bed because of a plot spoiler. If you want to know what that plot spoiler is, you can watch the trailers and clips. It's everywhere, but I'm trying to keep it properly spoiler free. This film took me by surprise because it's not one that I was expecting, although I'm a huge fan of King's work, and not a lot of people knew that it was even coming. Interesting point about this film is it took just 26 days to film, and that might worry you if you hear that, because you think, oh, maybe they should have given more time and adapted it properly. But this is the budget they had, and what it comes off like is that they have an indie budget and it has an indie film. This took me back to, if you are used to watching TV films back in the 80s and 90s, it has that feel about it. It's not cheap, but it has nostalgia feeling to it, and it is filmed in such a way where it's really close. They're really close shots, so at times you'll see the protagonist's face fill up half the screen, and it puts you really in the moment. And also, like Reservoir Dogs, this film is mostly, I would say 90% in one room. So you know that your protagonist has to really hold your attention to be able to be almost the only person on the screen together. But what happens is she ends up losing the plot a little bit, and you see other characters manifest from her mind and try and help her through this traumatic experience. And that's the kind of outer shell of the film. But what is actually there are other thematic themes that the film touches. So like it talks about innocence through flashbacks that are really well performed. It talks about innocence lost and trying to save marriage, and what is love, and what is marriage, and whether you can escape the shackles of your past in your present. And it actually has a lot to say. There are of course so many nods to other King's works, namely one particular one, Cujo, which you'll see. Very scary dog, like scary dog. Back off. And also, because it is a King's work, you will have an element of the supernatural and horror. In fact, this film reminds me so much of Misery. It has that sort of presence and forbearing presence. It carries on being scary throughout the whole film, even though there's not a lot happening. So the tension builds and builds and builds and builds until you get to that moment, like in Misery, where something happens. And I watched this with my son, and he had to leave the room. There is that moment, like that. If you know what I'm talking about, if you've seen Misery, you know there is that moment where some people go, "Oh, I can't handle it." No, there literally is that moment. I was so pleasantly surprised by this film. It is phenomenally acted. It is well scripted. The adaptation of the work into screenplay has been done with love and attention. Every detail, as far as I can tell, has been put into this film. The shots are well filmed, even though it's in one room mostly, and through flashbacks it builds character development, which is a really nice mechanic and works really well here, and fantastically has a great ending. It wraps up well, and it's kind of more of an airy ending when you find out stuff that's happened. I urge you, when this comes out on Netflix, watch it. It is definitely worth your time, worth 1 hour and 40 minutes, and I can't wait to see more from Mike Flanagan. I think he's got a really great career ahead of him. I know he's going to do another horror TV series coming up with Carla Gugino, so look out for that. So this film is definitely going in our Goresome section for great and awesome.
Great! That's just awesome.
Awesome!
Because it is a really good film. It has the nostalgia feeling of a TV movie, but could easily have been played in the cinema. The director has done a great job. He's got his team that he's worked with for a while, and that shows. So even though it's only been filmed for it only took 26 days to film, they got everything they wanted. There was high tension, great adaptation, and if I was giving a star rating, I would give this 5 out of 5. It's a really great film. Watch it. Thanks for watching the Ruby Tuesdays reviews. We've got loads coming out. We've just been to EGX. We've got some stuff coming out of that. More reviews coming up. Thank you for bearing with me with my cold, my man flu. And do look out for our other reviews coming soon. One particular one I'm really excited about is the new Blade Runner film. Bye.